Good morning, Mrs. Christine.
Good morning, OEQA. How are you? Okay. Ms. Fazia or Mrs. Ashobu, could you enable screen sharing or make me a host so that I can share my screen, please?
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, the DG of OEQA, DG, Office of Education Quality Assurance, and person of Mrs. Abiola Seriki Ayeni. Good morning, Ms. Christine from Mirai. Good morning, school leaders, all evaluators present, the directors here present. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another session of today's workshop. This is the second series in this session, that's quality of teaching and learning. In the past, we've had different topics. We've talked about developing powerful learning outcomes. We've also had a workshop on moderating assessment. The last one we had was hybrid teaching and learning. And today's workshop promises to be as exciting as and informative as the past workshop we've had. Please do know that our workshop can be found or can be downloaded from our YouTube page at oeqalagos.com, and all the series can also be found on our website www.lagoslearnstogether.com under the tab PD with the DG. And on that note, I would like to introduce the DG of Office of Education Quality Assurance in person of Mrs. Abiola Seriki Ayeni for a welcome address and to introduce us to today's team. DG, good morning, ma'am.
Good morning, everyone. How are you today? Thank you so much, Fauzia. You're all welcome to this OEQA workshop focused on student-centered learning. We are very excited, as has been addressed. We are in a second series where the quality of teaching and learning is the focus for this set of modules. Before COVID, right, if there was ever such a thing, but before COVID, pre-COVID, we have always been moving toward global best practices as it comes to teaching and as it comes to learning. As a state, Lagos State has been trying in terms of the infrastructure, in terms of all the things that are needed to ensure that this happens and it happens well. With the onset of COVID, we were sort of taken very far into the future, and we realized that the future is actually now, right? So today's workshop, the topic of today's workshop is one that is very dear to my heart, and it really speaks to the purpose and to the center of what education should be. So I'm very glad that we're able to focus on that today. We have also traditionally, this realm of the world, in fact, everywhere when it comes to teachers, we've focused on teacher-centered education delivery. And we really want to move toward student-centered learning. And we are going to touch the tip of the iceberg today. If we were to delve into it fully, I'm sure one session is not enough. So I would say that we're just exploring the tip of the iceberg, and I believe it's a well-packed session. I want to welcome Mrs. Christine Asser-Gotzi. Welcome from RI Partners. We've missed you. We've missed you, but it's good. We've been flexible and we've been working with other facilitators who have been exceptional. So let's dig in.
All right.
Over to you, Ms. Christine.
Thank you. Thank you, DG. All right. So quickly, our ways of working. These should seem familiar by now. Try to be present and to avoid distractions. Participate. This is our biggest one. We want the workshop is only going to be as good as your participation because we have as much to learn from one another as one ever could possibly have to learn from a facilitator. And then finally, when we ask you to do an activity, whether it's a reflection or feedback on something, we really want you to do the activity. So no breaks in this session. We want you to be fully engaged. So this is a rundown of our agenda. It is, as the DG said, an action-packed hour and a half. We've had the welcome. We're going to move into an icebreaker related to the topic and an introduction. Then we're going to go through specific ways that educators can make teaching and learning more student-centered. And that will include looking at the provision of complex and interesting tasks. We'll have a case study, a local case study from a school not that far from the DG's office with Mr. Sam Adegoke. We will talk about identification of resources to address tasks. We are going to have another quick case study after that. Unfortunately, the teacher could not join us, but it's another Lagos State public school teacher. We'll talk about the role of discussion with peers and teachers and the role of teacher feedback in student-centered learning. And if we have any time left over at the end, we'll have a bit of Q&A. So let me see here. Okay, I want to make sure I'm not jumping on any of the DG's slides. All right, so that was the older version of this. Let me run through the objectives then. Okay. So the objectives of today, I'm not going to read through this whole through the whole slide, but the first objective really is for you to learn and to think about the application of principles of student-centered learning to your practice or to the work that you do overall. So think about if you're a school proprietor or an evaluator, what would it look like in the context of the schools with which you work to see the characteristics of student-centered learning listed below? We want to really think then about what are the practical strategies when you don't see it or when you would like to improve the quality of student-centered learning that can be implemented, whether it's you implementing that as an educator or working as a school leader, proprietor, or evaluator to support schools in the student-centered learning journey. As the DG said, this is not a one and done. Shifting to student-centered practice is it's a process and it takes time, which is why you will have access to these slides and to the recording so that you can go back to it at any time. So DG, over to you.
Please go ahead, Ms. Christine.
Okay, no problem. All right, so what is, oops, there we go. What is student-centered learning? I do not want to go ahead to that slide yet. I want you to use the chat. I would like you, this is both an icebreaker and an opportunity to share your thoughts. In the chat, please share how you would define student-centered learning. What does that phrase mean to you? Whatever your role might be.
Okay, so we'll be expecting responses in the chat box. What do you think your role is, or what do you think student-centered learning is? So we'll be expecting to see comments in the chat box now.
Exactly. What is student-centered learning? And there are no right or wrong answers to this too. It's just, what does it mean to you when I say that?
I like the fact that Christine stated that there's no right or wrong answers, because we actually want you to be honest about what comes to mind when you think of, student-centered learning.
I mean, I will tell you, oh, sorry, go ahead, DJ.
No, I was just going to say that not just what you think the textbook says about it, but from your experiences, what do you think is the objective of student-based learning? Please go ahead, Ms. Christie. No,
that's fine. That's fine. Learning focused on learners. All right, let's try to be, what do we mean when we say that? Learning that's focused on learners. What might it look like in a classroom? And bearing in mind the diversity of schools in Lagos. There are large class sizes in some schools, small class sizes in others. Okay, Nimota. Teaching strategies that are highly interactive. I love that answer. Motivating. Collaborative. Collaboration has definitely taken a hit too with social distancing. Differentiated.
So how can collaboration even look different when we're not together?
For learners take ownership of learning. Okay, we'll have a little strategy for that. That's super simple.
Keep them coming.
Yep. And if you've already gone as well, what I'd like you to do is on your paper, by the way, Mariam Omoyele, I love that you talked about how to use the lesson notes, right? Preparing your lesson notes, putting into consideration the learners in your class. All right, now we're rolling. In your notebook, I also want you to write down, what is your objective for this workshop? What is the learning outcome that you want to achieve yourself based on these objectives? Is there one aspect of this that feels particularly important to you right now? This is great. Oh, Mr. Adekoke, you're here already. That's wonderful. Okay. So what is student-centered learning, right? I think your answers are certainly equal, at least, to what we have here. And as we said before, there's no real right or wrong answer to this. Student-centered learning fosters positive relationships among students, but also between the students and the teacher. Now, we know that can be difficult in large class sizes, and we'll talk about some case studies within that as we go. Student-centered learning also fosters positive identity on the part of the student. I am a learner, I am capable. That then translates into student ownership and agency. Students feel in control of their learning. They feel like they are able to find things out. Real-world relevance. It's not always easy in a curriculum to bring in the real-world relevance. But interestingly enough, you can just little references to how can we compare that to what's happening now, for example. Competency-based. We want students to be able to build skills, to build competencies that they can apply. Student-centered learning may also be anytime, anywhere, right? Learning that can happen online, on a bus. And then it's foundational. We need to make sure that basic student needs are being met. If a child, for example, feels threats to their safety, it's very hard for them to learn. DG, this was your slide, and I apologize. I jumped all over it. Do you want to add anything to it?
No. I feel that even looking through this slide, each aspect of this framework, they're all interwoven, right? So it's not to say that every single time you'll be hitting every single part of this, but like, there's been a running thread throughout these series about having the end in mind. And if we're going towards student-centered learning, this is the end. So how can we make adjustments? How can we plan toward having all of this? Another thing I wanted to mention here is also how it's not just about the content, right? You may be wondering, how do I foster, positive identity? Is it just about like having a certain topic? Is it just in social studies or English? When we're talking about this framework, it's really about your processes and your procedures, right? What system do you have in place to foster positive relationship, for positive identity, for student ownership? And those processes and procedures will also drive your objectives, drive your planning. So I just wanted to say that we are not expecting you to, hit neatly in every single lesson, every single time, but that we're talking about the larger picture that we want you to have and the goal that we have at the end of the day. Thank you so much, Ms. Christine.
Awesome. Thank you, DJ. Absolutely. And sometimes it's simply, and I know Ms. Mariam earlier wrote on the comments that, you may just be incorporating this into your lesson notes. Sometimes it's just looking at the lesson note and thinking, is there an opportunity to have my students turn to the person next to them and share their idea or their answer instead of me calling on them? That helps build relationships.
Exactly.
Or an opportunity to say, oh, you've been very reflective, right? That helps build the child's sense of themselves as a learner. So we're going to go on to those, some of the ways, right, that we can actually go about doing this. And we're going to start off with the provision of complex and interesting tasks. Now I'm going to turn this over to the DG. I'm going to share a video. Hopefully, we won't have any major issues with lag. It will be available to you on LagosLearnsTogether.com as well. And then I'll turn it over to the DG to lead this conversation. But what we want you to do beforehand is to write these 7 characteristics down. So actually take a moment.
Very helpful.
Write it down in your
I was going to
notebook.
say, how will they remember? Good.
We're going to
or take a
for a second.
screenshot. You can take a screenshot if you're if you have your phone.
Oh, you're so digital, DG. Yes, you can take a screenshot or you can write them down, because when we show you the video, we want you to literally, just like you see this little check mark over here, we want you to put a check mark when you see this happening in the video.
So maybe we'll just give them 1 minute to do that.
Yes, I know, I'm behaving myself. Not running too far ahead. It's funny how they always say teachers have a lot of patience. I don't always feel that way.
I actually feel the opposite. I feel because there's a lot of things happen. But to be honest, I think we have in place, right? Because of that lack of natural patience, we have to have those procedures in place so that there's accountability.
Good point. All right, I think we should have had time to write this down now or to take a screenshot. So let me start the video. And DG, can you just give me a thumbs up that you can hear it?
Okay.
Can you hear it?
Not yet.
It is, yeah.
Okay.
So you can't hear it.
Let's not fret yet. But you can hear it on your end.
Settings. I can, yeah. I did change my settings so that the. Oh, wait. No, there's a trick. Hold on. Let me stop sharing my screen and then reshare it. I think
share that trick with us also.
I know, it's like that. I'm going to stop sharing and reshare, and I think we'll get it. All right.
That's fine.
All right, so stop share. We always like to break the internet just a little bit, right? That's always one of our goals. Share with audio, share sound. Here we go, here we go. All right, let's try this again. DG, thumbs up.
Yes, we've got it. You've got it.
Broke the internet and fixed it.
Yes, thank you so much for that.
Oh, wait, hold on. Oh, wait, what? Why are you doing this? Let me go back here. Sorry, everyone. I tried to switch to full screen, but no dice.
But for some reason, I hear it, but I don't see it. I don't know if I'm the only one. It may just be me.
No, we can't see the video, Miss Christine. We can only.
You can't see it?
We can only hear it.
Okay. Do you see my slide?
No. You
don't see my slide.
It just says that you started sharing the screen. I see your face now.
Okay. I am thinking that I fixed the internet. Share slide, share screen. Okay. Do you see my slide?
Yes,
okay.
We see it now. We see. I think you have to teach us this trick for later.
All right, let's try again.
Mr. Dekoke.
Okay, could you see and hear?
Yes, we can see and we can hear.
Success.
Thank you.
Okay, here we go.
Well done. Thank you. Oh, I was supposed to tell them. I'm sorry, right? So as we watch this video, everyone, I want you to think through this framework that we've given you with these different components of student-centered learning. And as you watch the video, I want you to sort of think through what aspects are evident in this video. You may see a few, you may see one, whatever the case. I want you to think through and to be able to identify which ones you see. I think that's good. Ms. Christine.
It doesn't matter if you're scared of them or not. Just open up your heart, because snakes were just born this way.
In 2012, the second grade class at the Expeditionary Learning School Conservatory Lab Charter embarked on a learning expedition.
Our teachers told us in second grade we'd be herpetologists.
I went to my head of school and said, I want to make a music video, but I want to make a real high quality music video. I think a lot of courage is needed when approaching the Common Core, but I think it should be seen as this positive challenge that you rise to rather than something that holds you down. So I think of the Common Core standards as how can I get my students to be even better than I thought they could be before? And then how can I get the students to realize that they could do that?
Don't judge snakes by their looks. You can't change who they are. Snakes are born this way. Did you know that without snakes, life would eat up all the grains? There would be no food for cows.
Through hands-on research with snakes, support from professional herpetologists, and in-depth research using nonfiction resources, the students learned about snakes. After the students completed their research, the class worked with a professional songwriter and musician to write, perform, record, and produce Snakes Are Born This Way. Throughout this shared research and writing project, students were able to state an opinion and supply reasons that support that opinion, use facts and definitions to develop points, recount well-elaborated events, strengthen their writing through revising and editing, gather information from provided sources to answer a question, and use a variety of digital tools to produce and publish their writing. Through this project, the students met all of the second grade Common Core state standards for writing with depth, imagination, and courage.
I think I needed courage at that moment because I had a solo, I guess you could call it, and I was afraid after hearing it, I was afraid people were gonna make fun of me, but when people laughed, I just laughed with them. So I didn't really care because I tried my best.
I needed courage to make my snake because I didn't think I could do it until then. I'd done it and it looked the same as the picture.
Even though there is such a push for rigor and grit and meeting these standards, I don't think it's possible to meet the Common Core standards without the character building component. And when you realize you cannot meet those standards unless you focus on character, it makes meeting the Common Core standards so much easier because it is not possible to meet those standards unless your students have courage.
No snakes can be just like us. Some can give birth to their young. Once they find their mates, then the cycle's begun. When they are looking for mates, these snakes have special traits. Males do a combat and to stand a chance. No need to be.
I'm sorry. I just had to, I want us to move on. I think you probably had a chance to say it. I was just having a giggle about the male snakes doing a combat dance.
For a
DG.
chance.
Yep, exactly. No swiping left or right for those male snakes.
None of
DG,
those.
can I turn it over to you to lead the discussion of this?
Sure. Okay. So we're 76 people on it, and I know that I was writing different things as I was watching this video. I'm curious to know how has this assignment, how has this video showcased parts of that framework that we spoke about? I mean, the notes I wrote are outside of that, but let's focus on the framework and then we can go out. So thank you so much for going back to that. So how has positive relationships been, how have they been fostered through this video? How do we see that being fostered? Identity, positive identity about how students see themselves, how they see their sense of agency. That's the next one. Their sense of ownership over their own learning. How is it relevant to the real world around them? What are some connections we may be able to see? How is it competency? How have they ensured that it's competency-based, anytime, anywhere? And then how are the foundational needs met?
And you may not see
If
all
you
of them, right?
Yes.
What do you see most? What really jumps out to you?
I think people can indicate that in the chat. Someone said, Sholola Luakemi, real world relevance. Okay. Real world relevance. So they're not just talking about snakes, they're actually even seeing snakes, and they're reading about snakes from non-fictional texts. They're learning a lot about them. I don't want to say too much, but I feel like I'm saying a lot.
Why don't we call in someone?
Okay, someone said they couldn't see anything. Is that now or was it before? Okay, that must have been before. Okay, Fazia, please help us to cold call.
Okay.
Student ownership and agency. Okay.
Randomly, please, Adetutu Soshan, please, can you give us your idea on what you think has been fostered through the video you watched? What framework did you see? Hello? Adaura Francisca. Adaura Francisca. Okay, if she's not ready, how about Adetutu Shoshon? All right. Okay, one more person. Mr. Ojemen Ale Besumu. Can you please unmute yourself?
Is those of you that have been called on, please indicate it in the chat box. So if you're unable to do so now, you've been called upon, please indicate it when, as soon as you're able to, or your technology allows, indicate your responses in the chat box.
Ms. Omoyele also just raised her hand. Maybe we should call on her.
By the power of God.
Miriam Omoyele, please let's unmute her since she raised her hand.
Can you hear me now?
Please go ahead, Miss Mariam.
Oh, okay. I see learning taking place anytime, anywhere. And I can also see that.
What's the evidence of that, please?
Oh, okay, because they were not in class, they were outside the class. The learning took place outside the class. So it could be anytime and anywhere. Then I could also relate it with real world relevance. And because it also took place outside the class environment, and they took them to a place where they could see the live snakes, or they made them see the live snakes. So it was relevant it was not, the lesson was not abstract. And student ownership.
Even in the song, it's evidence, even in the song, that they have a real understanding of the relationships of that snakes have with one another. So real world relevant students solve real world problems and learn skills they will use in their own lives.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Ms.
I think you
Mariam.
wanted to mention more.
Positive relationship. So I think he brought the students together to be able to, like, collaboration or something like that. I think I would go with positive relationships, sir. That would be all, ma'am.
That was really good. You hit the nail on the head with all of them.
Thank you.
Gave examples from the video, right? And the reason why I keep asking, because even as teachers, when students have an answer, we want to push them a little bit to always use evidence from the text or from the material, which you've done well. Thank you, ma'am.
So do I
think we have time for one more.
Basirat Akimade, Ms. Basirat, you have your hand raised. Please unmute yourself and let us have your contributions. What do you think was modeled from the video you just watched, from the framework that is showing on your screen now? Ms. Basirat Akimade. Okay, Mr. Adeyemi Israel, you had your hand raised too. Mr. Adeyemi Israel. Okay, Mrs. Basirat Akimade, go ahead, please.
Yes, ma'am. According to the video, and I think in the major characteristics of student-centered learning approach are being observed. I observed that at first, the student confidence were built by taking them out of the classroom, why they can relate to the snake, and the fact that the song that was created or that was written it has been shown that they should have this kind of feeling that they are just like human being like us, and they also give birth and they can hardly harm anyone. So with that, to create much more interest in that topic, that one has been built. Then it is also shown that it is not necessarily that your class activities must be centered within the four walls of the classroom. It can be anywhere, based on the fact that, or rather, let me say, considering your objective. So if taking them outside the classroom, you are going to get a positive response from whatever topic you want to discuss, then it shows learning can take place anytime, anywhere, any moment. Also, I could see that it is the approach, the involvement, it's a reward involvement is relevant. There are relevancies in what they are doing. I could see the involvement of the teacher trying to show them how far, how much more can they identify. So with the usage of sketching on their own, we can easily detect that there is no place the students will find snake and they will not be able to identify. There is no way they are going to see that they will not be say one or two things about it. Then positive relationships. With the way the students were being connected, regarding to the way they were singing, jumping, and that alone has created a positive relationships amidst the students. If peradventure a student maybe forget something about the topic, he or she can easily go down to meet his or her friends that this topic that we treated, remember this and all that. So I think that one too is also part of the thing I saw in the video. Then I could also see that the foundation needs were actually met. For you to be able to talk about an object, for you to be able to relate something about an object, it means that you actually knows what that thing stands for and what the function of that stuff is. So that is all I could tender based on the video I watched.
Thank you so much. That was both responses were so thorough and insightful. I think the question that would very naturally come up is this, right? Fine. That was a lovely unit. The students were super engaged. It looks like so much fun. But what happens when you have fewer resources, you have a larger class size? You know, what of this are you then able to do? So what we need to do is peel back a little bit to think about providing complex and interesting tasks. So this is the teacher's role, is thinking beyond the lesson note to how can this be part of something that might be a little more complex, require a little more thought, require a little more creativity on the part of the student, and of course also be of interest to the students. Now, I am married to a man with a snake phobia, so I don't know how that unit would have worked out for him. And I do hope those children don't live near any poisonous snakes either, because don't want them to go running around petting snakes. So I'm gonna just share this, right, briefly. If we look at the lesson below, right, what aspects of the lesson would seem complex or interesting? What aspects of this lesson? So very simple lesson that you could do in most classrooms with most levels of resources. What aspects of this might support positive relationships, positive identity, student ownership and agency, real world relevance, development of competencies, anywhere, anytime learning, or meeting basic needs? And how also could this lesson potentially be improved, have more, be more complex, more interesting? Yeah, so these are just, it's a little high level, but before we do this, because I know we have Mr. Adegoke with us. And I think it would be great if we introduce him now and he can talk about how he went about taking what he was teaching and sort of shifting it a little bit to make it more complex and more interesting and more student centered. Sam Adegoke is a teacher who has been part of, oh, sorry, my video is off. Click it back on here. Having a bad hair day though. Sam Adegoke is part of the HP IDEA, Innovation and Digital Education Academy. He's part of the first cohort of teachers coming through the program from Lagos State and is a teacher at a public school, not that far, as I mentioned, from the DG's office. So DG, I'll turn it over to you to introduce Sam and to speak with him a bit about his project.
Okay, welcome, Mr. Adegoke Samuel. As Ms. Christine said, he's part of the first cohort of OEQA/HP IDEA fellows. And although there are private schools in the state that are part of the HP IDEA on their own, Lagos State, through the office, has had the privilege of having teachers across the state in all of the districts participate as we close up on the first cohort, and we recently started the second cohort. I've met with Mr. Adegoke Samuel, and I mean, the types of things that he's been able to do is just fascinating. Mr. Adegoke, you're welcome, sir.
Good morning, man.
Good morning. Thank you so much for being here this morning, virtually, of course. So let's just dig into it. For those that are not, that don't know much about the program, for those that don't know much about the wonderful work that you've been doing, could you just briefly walk, and I mean very just briefly, just walk people through how the HP IDEA fellowship has impacted your practice, and if you could also share some of your experiences as to how it's translated to this student learning, this student-centered learning that we are here talking about today. Within your experience, I believe we've mentioned that he is a Lagos State public school teacher, so that on its own says a lot. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Indeed, it's a privilege for this kind of meeting that I am in. Privilege to meet DG. Thank you very much, ma'am. And of course, Christine. So, and I will say good day to everybody. I mentioned this to you because probably they are the one that I know will be here. So I extend my greeting to everyone here, that it's a privilege to even have me here with you. All right, talking about, I would like to share my screen. Hello?
Yes, sir. Fauzia, does he have the?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I think you can go ahead and share it, sir.
All right, ma'am. Thank you. All right. The introduction, of course, has been made as a privilege by the DG. Thank you for having me here. Let's talking about HPIDA as a program. Actually, at this level, I will say it is a program that every teacher, whether public or private, should involve themselves in, because of the impact that we are seeing. All right, so this is my name. I'm from Bolade Senior Grammar School, Oshodi, Education District 6. Lagos State, Nigeria. Her name again is Adegoke Samuel Adebari. HPE idea of first cohort. All right. Yes, I just want to have this as a background because I have to marry the student-centered learning together with the topic of today, and that's why this overview is there. So when students don't feel involved, engaged, and inspired, their academic achievement can suffer a great deal. And this is the traditional way of teaching, that is teacher-centered learning. But the other way, when students own or commit themselves to the process of learning, academic outcome can be very amazing. I leave that at that because of time. Student-centered learning features, you can see it. Collaborative learning is part of it, and that's what I'm going to talk about later. And these are the advantages and the merits that we can get from student-centered learning, which has a lot of strategies. Collaborative learning and peer mentoring that I'm going to talk about is just one, as I've been stated earlier. So merits of collaborative learning, peer mentoring approach. This approach, or any approach at all in the classroom, must maximize learners' potentials, leading to better academic performance and, in fact, all-round development. It should also sustain the learner's interest productively. I emphasize that, productively to the end of the lesson. And also, the strategy must also engage learners beyond the classroom. All right, going to the HPE idea and my school context. I mean, why did I choose it and from where am I coming from? In summary, HPE IDA is a program that is focusing on building innovators, teachers as innovators. And this getting the need in your locality, in your school, to address it, no matter how minimal in your classroom. And then also another aspect of it, as we have it, is identifying how we can incorporate ICT into our classroom. But for the purpose of today's discussion, I'm going to talk about peer mentoring and collaborative learning, which I've already incorporated into my class. But how do we go about it? This is what HPE IDA has taught us. The first phase of innovation, of any innovation or any new idea, is to get data through your powerful inquiry skills to discover a particular gap or need that you want to address. This, we were taught, involves slow looking, which practically we did, observations, surveys, interviews, teachers, students, all the stakeholders, to get the exact way in which we need to go about whatever we want to introduce. Then my findings. I found out that students could do much more than they are doing presently if they are motivated and with the right approach. That students could take ownership of their learning if they are well motivated. That learners could be much more excited with the subject if the right atmosphere is created. That students could learn beyond the classroom setting with appropriate strategies. So how do we ensure that whatever new idea we want to bring to improve the lot of our students, how do we ensure the suitability and practicability in the class? that we want to do. And this is part of why, like I said before, we make inquiries, met the stakeholders, students especially. And I'm still going to talk about this, what I did exactly. So, but specific gap identified to be addressed. This is the statement. Students could not participate effectively in class discussion because they were yet to read their literature text. I take literature in my school as expected. That means that there is a gap. So through all my inquiries and everything, I have discovered that this is a gap, and this is a need that I will have to meet, which is minimum viable products. This minimum viable product, I really summarize. It is just in a little way, practicability of a little way in which I can address a need, which I can scale up later. So, and that is the one I've already stated. That is, students could not participate effectively in class discussion because they were yet to read their literature text as expected. So how do I intend to solve the problem? And that is what brings my MVP, which is my innovation focus. My innovation focus, inquiry focus, reads, how can we motivate SS1 students that are lagging behind in reading their literature text using collaborative learning, peer mentoring approach? That is the focus of my innovation, of the need I want to address with my MVP in education. So after this, what I need to get again is to address the rationale for the innovation. What and what do I think I can gain or my student will gain at the end of the day? These are the rationale. The student read, if the student read their literature text collaboratively in the class, student collaboratively in the class, lessons then, during lessons, then they will be motivated to read their text independently at home. That means that if we start practicing in the class, creating group for them, letting them read together, peer mentoring them, and asking this peer to go and mentor others, I practice some of this way I'm going to also share later. If the students read their literature text independently at home before classes, then they are able to contribute effectively during lessons. Also, if the students are able to contribute effectively during lessons, then they become more excited about the project. Then if the students are more excited about the subject they take ownership of the learning through enhanced reading culture, leading to better academic performance. These are the rationale. So what did I do? These are the practical steps of how I implemented my MVP, my innovation focus, and which I state as incorporating collaborative learning, peer mentoring into my class. First, I divided the students into small manageable groups of 5 to 6 learners in a group. Then I met all the group leaders in my office. Then I have to involve them right from beginning, even from the planning stage. That's what I did from the planning stage, so that we will be on the same page, even in the class. Then again, I had meeting with all the members of all the groups and explained to them the new approach to our teaching and learning process. Then I changed the seating arrangement during my lesson to group by group pattern, which was not that easy, but I tried to do them. Then practical demonstration of the collaborative learning, peer mentoring approach in the class during my lessons. I've already mentioned this, so that we practicalize what we want them to be doing, even in their groups, and they will see it in the class, so that they can take it from there. Then group presentation in the class on task and assignment, including character role play of the major characters in the recommended text we are studying for the term, and 1 to 5 minutes reading challenge. In this reading challenge, what we do is, if in their group, they are going to go and practice how to read for minimum of 1 minute without making any mistakes. And then from there, they graduate to 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, and that's after that 5 minutes, we also scale it up. All right. Then the use of WhatsApp platform for follow-up on the groups and the copying of their notes. All right. So I have a very short for the documentation. I have a short 1 minute video here, which I want us to watch, showcasing some of these things that I've stated, all those things that I said. I package them in this 1 minute video. My meeting with them in the class, role play, everything that we have been doing. All right. So the indicators of impact in rounding up, what have I seen with this approach? I could see that students contribute equally and independently in class presentation and meeting the stipulated requirement that I've given them, which they were unable to do before. All students independently read their text and complete their assignments, which depicts learners' understanding in their discussion. Learners take ownership of their learning by reading beyond the class, which reflects in their valuable contribution in class discussions. Learners are able to complete their notes and submit same on time through the use of WhatsApp platform that we are using also to assist. Learners are able to communicate, lead, as well as role play the characters of the recommended text according to specification that I have given them, including the reading challenge also. It has always been very, very exciting. And many a time they don't even want me to leave the class, and they will even come and call me even when I don't have them. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Wow, thank you so much, Mr. Adekoke. That was an amazing. Please, let's give like a hands up in the chat box for Mr. Adekoke. He has done an exceptional job. Thank you so much. I mean, I don't even know where to start in thinking through, but I just want to give a brief recap. So obviously, teachers were nominated from the districts, and it's not like anyone knew where they would be going when they were nominated, right? Just an interest to learn, an interest to improve their teaching and the learning that occurs in their classrooms. And you learned how to, you learned an approach to problem solving. One thing that I really took away from this is that innovation doesn't always have to be seemingly something that's so big, right? You zoomed in and you focused in on one aspect of the learning of your students, and you were able to figure out that collaboration would be necessary for that to happen. You carried along the students, you gave them ownership over their learning. You know, when I saw that you brought them, I was thinking to myself, okay, as a teacher, is there a separate office? Or, you know, because I know typically the classroom is the teacher's office, you know. But of course, I mean, just all the things that had to happen for that. I mean, sir, how many children do you have in your classroom typically?
I have the SS1, the one I'm talking about concerning this. I have 40, 41, 42 in the two classes of the arts class of SS1.
So it's not like you're dealing with the smallest group, right? To have 40 students within a classroom. I mean, and then I really liked the video presentation, the evidence is just seeing the children embedded in their reading. I mean, it's just wonderful. Another round of applause for you. Thank you so much. And I think this is when we think about that framework that we refer to, we can see many aspects, many components of that framework embedded into the work that Mr. Adekoke has shown us. If we can, I don't know if people can just indicate it in the chat. I know we're pressed for time, we have to move forward. But if you can indicate in the chat, what aspects of that framework did you notice were evidence that Mr. Adekoke used? So Christine, I know we have to move on for time, but I'm expecting our participants, we're 79, so someone said, I'm impressed, Lagos State Center of Excellence all the way. Congratulations, Mr. Adekoke. Congratulations, DG. Keep up the good work.
Ms. Evelyn does have her hand up. I don't know if she'd like to ask a question while we still have Mr. Adekoke here. And we'll rejig the rest of the workshop. Yeah, it's always great to have somebody, you know,
absolutely
sharing their actual experience. So Ms. Evelyn, I don't know if we can unmute you so that you can ask a question.
For her to be unmuted. Ms. Fauzia, can you assist? Ms. Evelyn, I believe you're now considered a panelist, so you should be able to unmute yourself. Ms. Evelyn, are you able to unmute yourself? I've tried on my end to unmute you. I'm not sure if Fauzia's here. Maybe she's unable to do that. Oh,
there's
okay,
another
please go ahead.
Oh, sorry, if I could just throw this one out too, maybe we can address this afterwards. But Ms. Omoyele asked, how about other classes in the public schools with larger numbers of pupils? So when you get up into the 80 range, and I'd love to hear Mr. Adekoke's view on that, but let's let Ms. Evelyn go first, and then we can go back to Ms. Omoyele's question.
Ms. Evelyn, please go ahead.
Oh, hello.
Yes, Ms. Evelyn, please go ahead.
Okay. Good morning or afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am, we can hear you.
Okay, I have a question for Mr. Adekoke. I don't know if it's still.
Please go ahead.
Hello?
Yes, please go ahead, ma'am.
Okay. Yeah, like the 5-minute group reading, like you said, that I wanted to know what he does at the end of the 5-minute reading challenge. Do the students, do they summarize what they have read at the end of that 5 minutes, or what do we stand to achieve, or it's just how to read and assimilate? Or I really want to get that part. I understand the collaboration aspect, but that 5 minutes, I really want to get that part very well. Hello?
Hello, can I answer?
Yes, Mr. Adekoke, please go ahead, sir.
All right, thank you for the question. Yes, it has different phases. That activity, that just one activity. Number one is to encourage them to practice because I actually have where we are going is that at the end of the day, the best first, second, third readers will be given a token, no matter how small. So, but the idea is to encourage them. Of course, as they read as a group, I give them, apart from reading challenge, I give them a chapter to read and then summarize and submit to me as a group. That has been taken care already. But this one is to encourage those people that don't want to read at all to practice reading so that they also can be selected as one of the best in the class. And normally I do video clips of it. Then I will now create a time. Because of our schedules, create a time where we are going to watch some of these videos that we have already, video clips that we have made in the class. And that also encourages them.
Okay, so really having that spirit of rapport in the classroom, I think this is similar to the purpose of why effective teachers also have examples of student work in the classroom. Who doesn't want their work to be exhibited, right? So it's something for them to sort of work toward. That's what it sounds like to me. Mr. Adekoke, someone also has a question regarding the numbers, the population. So if you had, say, 100 students or over 100 students in a class, how would your strategy have maybe changed, remained the same? Would it have been different from the onset in terms of your innovative approach?
All right. I want to thank the person that asked the question. Yes. But I would say yes and no. Yes, because if you have a very large number of students in the class, the arrangement, how I'll be able to make the arrangement, making them to sit group by group, then I may have a little challenge about that. That is the only area I see. But every other one, because that's why I call it dividing them into manageable groups. Even if they are 1,000, I will still go ahead with the collaborative. In fact, it's the best. The larger they are, the better. Thank you.
I don't think I've heard that before. The larger they are, the better. That is definitely bold. I can say with the public schools, a lot of them have actually a lot of outdoor space. In these large, what I would call courtyards, I guess. So, you could certainly look at bringing the students outside if you needed more physical space as an option. It's just one thought.
Yes, in addition to that, I would also say, right, we've talked about what the objective of what he wanted to do is, and I definitely think there are multiple ways that a large number can be advantageous, although it is more difficult, more challenging, and it requires more scaffolding, and it's not something that will happen overnight. You have to you have to do it in phases in terms of even training the children on what the expectations are when they're in different groups. Okay, so if you had, maybe a group of 100 students, and everyone had a number 1 to 5 or 1 to 10. Maybe you're having 10 groups of 10. What would be the role of each person in each group? So maybe if you number off 1 to 10, there's a 1 in every group, there's a 2, there's a 3, and each number has a specific role there to play, right? So there are different ways in which, but like I said, it takes a lot of planning and it takes a lot of scaffolding, but it's definitely possible. I know there's another, especially when it comes to literature classes, I think it's called concentric circles. Concentric circles, where there's an inner circle and then there's a larger circle, and everyone on the outer circle is basically observing those within the inner circle, and they're observing what it is that, so they're learning from the experience of those few. You know, there are many things that we can do. The thing I say is, let's just get started. Let's not be intimidated by the numbers. Let's not be intimidated by the lack of resources. Let's not be intimidated by the fact that we're letting go of some power as teachers, right? Thank you so much again, Mr. Adegoke. I know we could speak to you forever. I want to thank you for your presentation. I know you are in class, so thank you. We will allow you to go. Thank you so much, sir. So, Ms. Christine, let's just move on from here.
Thank you so much. Oh, thank you, Mr. Adegoke. This is really inspirational. So I'm sorry, I can't get a sentence out today. Obviously, it was so wonderful to hear from Mr. Adegoke and to hear practical experience from a Lagos public school. That does mean we're going to need to rework a little bit of the remaining time that we have, but absolutely worth it. I'm going to jump into the next part around the identification of resources to address tasks. Because remember, we're looking at a couple of really specific strategies. So the provision of complex and interesting tasks on the part of the teacher. Mr. Adegoke added in, the role playing that, you know, made these tasks more complex and more interesting for the students when it came to their reading comprehension. But he also provided that scaffolding by training his students to lead small groups and by providing them time to do the reading assignment as well. So when we talk about identifying resources, right, my colleague Helen always talks about the resources we provide our students as a walled garden. You want to think about what are the best resources that will enable them to do the work that they've just done. Now, resources will vary depending on the school and the level of resources to which the students have access. Now, the teacher in this case was not able to join us, but we do have another case study from the Lagos Public Schools as well. But all too often, what we end up seeing is that teachers will say, I want you to research, and I just saw this yesterday, I want you to research natural resources in India and create a presentation. And so the students go to Google, as we all would, and they type in natural resources in India. The students could actually have a far better learning experience if they're taught how to search effectively, right? How to understand a quality website, a well-researched factual website from fake news. And also if we provide some pre-curated resources for the students. So why the walled garden, right? If a student spends half of the lesson searching on Google, they're going to find a site and then they're going to spend the second half of that lesson making the presentation. Mm-hmm. They're not going to spend a lot of time actively grappling with the content that they're meant to learn. Those higher order skills like comparing, evaluating, synthesizing will be things that they don't get.
Absolutely.
And it also helps with making sure we have age appropriate resources, which can be a challenge too. So teaching students how to Google, right? I'm a mother, and I will tell you the first thing my kids do with anything is to say, I searched it up, right? I researched it. Simply typing something into Google is not researching. And so this will be on legoslearnstogether.com. We'll put it in the PowerPoint version so that you can actually get the links to the videos. But there are videos here that you can use to support students in effective Googling. So when we talk about a walled garden, this is just a simple example, and this is from a school in the UAE. It's a single slide that provides links to a few websites that are pre-vetted that the teacher knew would have effective content. Now, of course, the UAE is a predominantly Muslim country, and so a local link, a link that helps make the learning feel even more relevant to students, is to look at Muslim soldiers during World War II and the role that they played. And then stories, right? World War I, getting to listen to audio archives of those soldiers. Not the first thing a student would find when they go to Google. So the teacher has pre-curated it here. But the example we want to give here, this sort of second case study, I'm going to swap my share for a second here. DG, will I get the second share? Ms. Omoyele, absolutely. DG, do you want to add anything to that while I get the second document to share? We may have lost her for a moment.
Oh, sorry. I didn't realize I'm sorry, I was just speaking. You know, it's interesting you talk about that, because I was also thinking back at some and looking on my computer for different type of units that I've had to do with students that's centered on research. And I remember there was a particular one that we did where I actually provided all of the articles for the students to choose from, right? Because we were working on a persuasive writing exercise. So I gathered articles on each of the different topics for them to be able to have access to read through them and figure out which topic they wanted. So I think it really goes into what you're saying, because I know I vetted that, right? So maybe that's the first, that's like that's an elementary stage. So maybe the next time the students will have to look for the articles on their own, because I know the purpose of that particular assignment is to see how they analyze, right? So I made sure that I provided them with high quality content, and then they'd have to read through that, you know. So I absolutely feel the pain about doing that and Googling everything. I think we're all guilty to an extent of Googling everything, you know. Okay.
And that's okay, right? I mean, it's part of it is actually teaching the students what makes a good resource. And the best way is for you to share examples of good resources and how your process, how you came to them, which brings us to our second case study. So this is Ms. Kazim Fatima. I don't have the name of her school or the district that she's in. I apologize, I will find out. But Ms. Kazim was also in the HP IDEA program. And as part of the project, right, Ms. Kazim decided that she wanted to engage in peer mentoring. Now, so far, there's sort of a similarity, right, between what she did and what Mr. Adegoke did. But this is where it becomes a little bit different. Partway through the project, she found that the students were struggling in the peer group. She teaches high school mathematics, and part of it was social. And what she found out was that the students, even though they didn't all have their own devices, many of them could get onto a device at some point in the evening. And they were out there on their devices getting into problems with each other, rumors, drama, and not in a good way, And so she realized in this that not only were the devices causing some social problems, but actually that if the students had devices or access for at least part of the day to those devices, she could get them to use their devices to learn. And so she actually taught the students how to find study clips on YouTube for the types of calculations that they were doing. And the students themselves then basically formed a task force. So I would describe this as peer mentoring plus. They formed a task force to find, vet, and share the best learning resources for their topic on YouTube. And, you know, they could vote up and vote down each other's suggestions. And what she found was twofold. One was that their performance in mathematics went up. The other was that the social problems, online bullying, etc., went down. So this is really simple, right? It's not even the slides that you saw before. It's very simply a teacher getting the students, teaching the students how to identify good study resources, and then getting the students to act in a almost competitive way as curators of those resources, and as a result, providing a bit of peer mentorship as well. Now, here's where we are. It is 11:23 in beautiful Lagos, Nigeria. We are not going to have time to do everything. So I think maybe what we wrap up with is the DG on discussion with peers and teachers. Feedback is itself such an important way of supporting students. Maybe we make that a separate workshop a little farther down the line. Is that okay with you, DG?
Absolutely. Thank you. I have so many things going on this
I
my
know.
computer. So I thought that we had, okay. Yes, I think it is worth actually splitting it up. And I like the fact that Mr. Dekolke's testimonial was here. I think we're definitely walking away with much more as a result of that. So if we have to break things up, I think it's totally fine.
Awesome. So over to you to just speak briefly about some tips on promoting either online discussions or in-person discussions, some of the ways that you can foster that.
Okay. So is this the last slide that we're working on now? So we've decided not to go.
Yeah, we'll make feedback its own workshop.
Okay.
And we'll just do a little bit of, see, I don't know if you face this problem, but for sure I do. And I face it on webinars like this. I am not always careful in the way I phrase questions, because sometimes they just come out. And I might say something like, what do you think of that? But that kind of question, unless the topic is crystal clear. Oh, sorry, I had turned my video off. My hair is messy today, Ms. Fausia. That's why my video was off. I didn't have time to put any makeup on before this.
It is totally, I mean, what you said is it's very apt, right? And that is why when we look at that framework for teaching, central to, you know, instruction is the asking of questions, right? So we don't want to ask questions where we're just going to get a yes or no answer. But at the same time, we want to be able to guide students to where our objective is. And oftentimes they get to a place, if we allow them, they get to a place that we are probably have never have gotten on our own. But it takes practice. It does take practice because, you know, when you're asking people questions, they can end up over here. And not to say that that information is not relevant, but when we want to be focused on where we're going, you kind of have to plan out your questions sometimes, even at the planning phase, right? So anyway, let me just work on this particular slide. So in having discussions with peers and teachers, these are some tips for promoting effective online discussions, right? So we may not want to just say, what color was the character's hat? We're just going to get one answer. And there may be times where having one answer, those lower level thinking skills, right? There are times where that is important, but remember where we are going, right? And at every level, at every class level, if you're working with 5-year-olds, if you're working with 17-year-olds, it is possible to get to higher order thinking skills throughout the spectrum. Right. So, but it also takes some scaffolding. So for number one, we have modeling what good online dialogue looks like. I am such a fan of modeling almost everything, right? So first I will model it, right? So I will do what the expectation is. I will ask them what they notice about it. And I'm also a fan of letting students do the work. I don't like I don't like doing all the work for them. So even if I were to model what good online dialogue looks like, instead of me to say, oh, look at this discussion, this is what you should model, I will ask them, what do you notice about this discussion? Some people say, okay, it's a question, it's not a statement. Some people can say, maybe the person that responded gave 2 examples from the story, you know, let them notice it first. Then the category you already know exists, you say, great. Now, in order to do well for this, these are the expectations. We talked about criteria for success in our previous workshops, right? So modeling also you also want to make sure they know how to get to that. When someone sees a picture of what your expectation is, but they don't know the roadmap, it's useless, right? So you also want there to be some opportunity for students to understand how you are getting there brick by brick, block by block. And that's where the criteria for success comes in. Okay, that's number one. Number two, moderate the post. Oh, okay. I'm sorry, there's like a blue box. Moderate the post. No,
Okay.
that's fine. I have the paper
Okay.
in front of me. Okay, so moderate the post. How can you make sure that you are sort of involved and they're not going left wing and that you are bringing them back to the fold? You're bringing them back. So if they're talking about something and most of it is on task, or some of it is not on task, you can say, thank you for that, but let's focus on A, B, C, or let's go back to the criteria for success. Then the third one, I can't see it here.
Oh, sorry. One of the participants had asked me to zoom in. I don't know if that made it better or worse.
I have it here also. Let me just make sure. Oh, we have so much that we're supposed to do today.
I know.
Okay. So praise, it's okay. And we'll wrap up. So praise students for great feedback and comments. So this is another thing with praise. We don't want to give praise that people are not worthy, but you also don't want to praise people to the extent where they don't feel that they can add more. Praise should also, and I like, praise should be feedback. So I like your examples of evidence. It's specific about what you like about what they have done, okay? I like your analysis on this character. It shows ABC. So we do want to be specific when it comes to that. And then ask the right questions. And like I said, plan them in advance, right? Eventually, teachers will come to that place where even if they don't plan them, sometimes they're able to still scale through. But planning is such a great best practice. You always want to be able to plan for them in advance to contain the lesson objective of that particular day. Okay, so at the bottom, we have some examples of some probing questions. And I'm sure if I have my staff here, they'll notice that I ask some of these questions, not just in the classroom, I ask them in my interaction with other people also. Okay, so what is the evidence that supports that suggestion? What would be the opposite of that? That's interesting. What makes you say that, right? So there are different ways in which we can probe. When you say probe is just, probing. So, and that list is there, and it's a good one. While you were speaking before, I had actually gone back to see an example of that assignment that I gave, but it's probably too late to share it. I'll probably have it on Lagos Learns Together. An example of evidence, when you talked about students Googling, I have an example of what makes evidence good. What makes it good, what makes it acceptable, what makes it unacceptable, so that's something that we could probably just share in the phase 2 of this of this workshop.
That's
so
a
I
great
think
idea.
Yeah, okay, so this is 11:32. I think we should give some time for, I don't know if Ms. Christine, if there's anything you want to.
I'm going to say one thing on large class sizes, on discussion and probing questions. So I think this is really important. What happens often, right, with asking questions is that it can almost look like a game of table tennis, right? Teacher asks, student answers, bounce backs to the teacher, bounce backs to the students. Now, when you have 60, 70 students in a class, if you're asking one student and you've got 70 students, you're going to have, 1, 2 students answer, 68 students who are left behind listening, maybe, we don't know, hopefully. So very simple strategy when it comes to making sure that you have that engagement. When you're asking a question, so let's say, can you give an example of when that happens? Ask your students to turn to the person next to them and share their thoughts. 1 minute.
That's called a turn and talk, right?
Turn and talk.
Turn and talk.
It's the simplest, sometimes people talk about think, pair, share, where you have the students think, then discuss in a pair, then share. I actually am not an advocate of a full think, pair, share, because you don't have time for 30 groups to share their thoughts. Not only that, by the time the second group goes, right, nobody else is going to be listening. But turn and talk, or think, pair, and 1 or 2 share, then that can work really effectively too. But it's actually just as simple as, if you're teaching, catching yourself and saying, if I'm asking one student, why not ask the whole class and give them 30 seconds to turn and talk? So just a simple strategy for when you've got a lot of children in the room.
I like that, and I think it is very feasible. Even if you as a teacher don't hear what everyone is saying, that everyone has been engaged to.
It's that thinking
to a certain extent.
Absolutely. Okay, we are going to wrap this session because I know we are over time right now. I'm going to stop sharing.
Let's give them time to. So, are there any questions before we wrap up? Someone had their hand raised.
Miss Evelyn, I think.
Oh, I think it's Miss Evelyn again.
Yeah, Miss Evelyn.
Miss Evelyn, please unmute yourself and let us have your questions.
Okay. So, as we wait for Ms. Evelyn to come on, like I had mentioned earlier, this I know was just going to get to the tip of the iceberg. There's so much to unravel and to work through when it comes to student-centered learning. And I'm hoping that at least by the end of this session, your eyes have been that much more widened to the work that needs to be done. Also, not about the enormous work that needs to also be done, but also about some very simple tweaks that we can do to ensure that we're working in this path and along this journey together, okay? So like with Ms. Christine said, we'll have to break some of this up because there's a lot of useful information in this particular session. It's very heavy, or it's very packed. It's a better word for that. Like I said, I was already looking for resources to share. I had to hold myself back. So I'm not sure if Ms. Evelyn still has anything to say, and I'm not sure if there's anything else in the chat box in terms of questions that we can quickly address before we log out.
I think we're good.
Okay. Thank you so much. On behalf of Lagos State Government OEQA, I want to thank everyone for their participation today. Mrs. Nasser Ghatsi of Marai Partners wants to thank you for always making yourself available for these sessions. They mean so much to us. Mr. Samuel Adegoke, our HPIDEA Fellow, thank you for trusting us and believing in us. To go through this journey. It just warms my heart to see the type of impact that is being made. One teacher at a time, one child at a time. We thank you for your service, and we hope as a result of this, remember, with HPIDA Fellows, we've also tasked you all for getting associates under your belt so that more people are able to benefit from these processes as we begin the second cohort. I want to thank the entire OEQA staff for making themselves available for this training. My evaluators, many of them are on the field. I see they're sending me pictures of what's going on, and some of them are still able to log on. Please do remember that all of these, this video recording is being live streamed on YouTube, and that it will be available thereafter at OEQA Lagos on YouTube, and that all of the materials will also be available on lagoslearnstogether.com. It is our hope and desire that after these sessions, you are able to go forth and scaffold these workshops and use them. That's there's no way I can talk about all of this without saying that we want it to be usable knowledge, right? We don't just want to sit here and have you listen to us for hours without nothing happening, right? We want to make sure that it is usable and that you're able to use it well. Our feedback is always welcome. Thank you so much, and God bless you all. I see the cat has made a cameo.
The sage.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Have a great weekend.
Thank you. You
Bye.
too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.